Hello everyone, I'm Ashley, the editor-in-chief of the Blyth Daily newspaper. We are very fortunate to have Mr. Booth, our principal of the Yorkville, Lawrence Park, and Orbit campuses here today. Hello, Mr. Booth, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Ashley?
I'm doing great. I'm very excited and thankful you are joining me today for our exclusive interview. So before we start with the questions, could you please introduce yourself?
I am Michael Booth. I am the principal of Blyth Academy's virtual Orbit campus, as well as our Yorkville and Lawrence Park campuses.
So as the principal for the past years, when were you most satisfied in your job?
Well, this year I think I've been most satisfied in our teachers and our students and our families' resilience through this really challenging year. In August of 2020, we had introduced a fully virtual campus that was really based on the principles that we apply in our bricks and mortar schools, and with our small class sizes and our personalized approach to teaching and our real efforts to maintain strong communications between families and the school, and try and maintain the academic rigor and performance of our classrooms and all the supports that we offer, and even try and maintain our culture, our school life and our school cultures with extracurriculars and community building. And you know, I was really uncertain about whether or not we would be able to do that through a pandemic and lockdowns and in the physical campuses, coming in and out of schools, and in the virtual school, doing this all online. And I think that the job that we've done this year, that everyone's done this year, has been probably the proudest achievement of my 10 years at Blyth Academy. And the feedback that we've received kind of on a daily basis through our interactions with you guys and your parents, but also in our surveys to the communities, and the responses that they provided have been the most positive I've seen in my 10 years at Blyth. And that's been very, very overwhelming in the face of the challenges that we face. So I think that, I mean, we already had what I considered to be a very strong school and an amazing community, but to see that maintain itself and even thrive through these challenges has been quite a remarkable achievement, I think.
Okay, great, thank you. And you know, during this pandemic, where did most graduates go?
I mean, we don't know everybody yet because offers are still coming in, but those that have received offers, the overwhelming majority have received offers to their first choice of universities. And as with every year, you know, we'd have 20-30% of our students going to the most competitive programs in the country, the Queen's Commerce, Waterloo Engineering. And then we have, you know, a healthy sized group going to kind of not second tier, but not the most competitive university programs. And then some students will go on to college. Maybe, I don't know, 5-10% might choose college as an option if that's a more appropriate fit, or they have careers such as, you know, cooking or filmmaking, that the colleges have really great programs in. And some students may be choosing to take gap years and continue with us, or do travel experiences if that's possible, or gain some work experience. So it's been very similar to any other year with us at Blyth in terms of where our graduates are heading.
Okay, great, I'm glad to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, students' achievement and enthusiasm is directly related to the teaching level. So from a scale of 1 to 5, what would you rate our teachers' teaching efficiency?
Well, if I go by the latest round of surveys that I got from the students, I put it at a 4.7, I think was actually the figure. And we did parent surveys earlier in the year, and they were similarly extremely positive. And then just based on my own, you know, the surveys are fine and the numbers are fine, but but just from my own observation and the unprompted comments that I've seen from students and parents thanking their teachers for the job they've done and the conversations I've been having, I would put it very high. They've done a really outstanding job. I I was listening to a CBC news report on uh, they've done a questionnaire of teachers in other school systems this year, and there's been real challenges and difficulties and struggles, and we have faced those challenges and struggles as well. But I was really struck, and I told the faculty this in our meetings this week, that I was just so struck by how resilient and positive and successful they and their students have been able to be this year, particularly relative what's happening in some other schools in the province and the world.
So do you think students benefits from teachers guiding?
I I hope so. That's the feedback that I'm receiving. It's rare. It's a very rare week that goes by that I don't. I mean, I get CC'd on most of the communications between teachers and parents and students, just so I can have a sense of what's going on in the schools. And it's a very rare week that goes by that I don't see a note of sincere appreciation issued to one of the teachers from their students or parents. And it's really not uncommon at all for them to say things like, "You're the best teacher I've ever had," or "I didn't really like this subject before I took it with you, and now I really do." And I think if you talk to most Blyth students, they would say very similar things.
So as we talk about like all the teachers and students have very positive feedbacks for the school, do you think are there any appealing parts of Blyth teaching? For example, like small classes, teaching like the liberal arts colleges, or teachers extra help?
Yeah, I think the maximum number of students that any Blyth teacher in a physical campus can teach at any one time across all of their classes is 32 students. The maximum number of students that a teacher of any of the virtual classes can teach is 12 students. And that's a big difference from teachers in most other schools. And I think of class sizes in terms of time. And basically, the larger the class size, the less time you have to spend with each individual student. And the smaller the class size you have, the more time you can devote to supporting all of the students in your class, and all of the different kinds of students in your class. So you can attend to both the more advanced learners and those that are not as advanced. And that time through that class size is really what makes us the school that we are.
So, as we all know, we are experiencing a totally different learning experience during this pandemic, and it is hard for some students who might be experiencing difficulties in learning. So, how can the school help students get through this difficult time?
Well, we've had ongoing discussions with the faculty about, and the guidance counselors and students and the parents about what is working and what isn't working through these new forms of classroom experience. And we've responded to feedback about the duration of time spent on screen, the formatting of assessments, the volume of assessments, the kinds of teaching strategies that are employed. So, for example, when the pandemic hit last year and we all went virtual, I noticed in my visits to classrooms that some teachers that relied more on their own energy and charisma and passion in the classroom were struggling a bit with students who they were only able to interact with on screen. And so I invited them to go into their colleagues' classrooms to see some of the techniques they were using in terms of asking students to respond in the chat room, or breaking out into breakout rooms, or employing different kinds of classroom surveys and classroom exercises that they would not have used as much in the physical classroom. And I think that those collaborations and those daily check-ins have gone a long way to help us, help you guys um, uh, come as close as possible to what it is we're able to do when we're physically in the classrooms. And I think because we were always in 4 terms at Blyth, we always had small class sizes. We always had really frequent and regular communication between the school and parents and school and students. We always used Edsby site to post resources and have and offer updates on what's going on in the class. That the gap between what we're doing virtually and what we've always done physically, I think is less with Blyth than most any other school that I'm familiar with that have more traditional features.
Okay, thank you. So followed by the previous question, how can the school make virtual teaching as the same quality as in-person learning, or how do teachers actually interest students from virtual learning?
I think, I mean, the governing principle is try and mirror what you do in a physical classroom. So if there's a time, say, that you would normally give the students 20 minutes, half an hour to do some independent work while the teacher floats around the classroom to make sure that everyone's questions are being answered, or they're working in groups or so forth. I've encouraged teachers to say, well, you can, they can float around to individual one-on-one breakout rooms with students and conference with them there. Students can go off screen for a period of time and then come back and check in. It's really about accentuating what we already always did in the classroom. And also being sensitive to the fact that you're not going to be able to maintain someone's attention as easily as you could if you were physically there. And so be mindful of that. And so I think, where more traditional formats have had to sacrifice a lot of what they normally do, I keep going back to this, but again, I think we've come closer to achieving what we normally do than we would have if we had larger class sizes and semesters and all the rest.
So, as we talk about all the questions in the above, why do you think Blyth is successful, or how is our school different from others?
I think I'm going to sound like a broken record and say all the things that I've been saying throughout. But ultimately, what it always comes down to is class size, teachers that are really talented and hardworking and engaged, students and families that are interested in. I mean, I'll use my own daughter as an example. She's been in a more traditional school throughout her high school career, and she's now in grade 12, and what she was she was doing pretty well all year, but we felt by the spring that her engagement and attention and feedback um, and interaction from her teachers, and so she's actually joined a couple of Blyth classes. And 2 weeks in, I picked her up after school. I saw her after school, and she was very excited to talk to me about her ISU for English and what she was going to write on. And I said, this isn't like you. You don't often like to talk about these things with me. And she said, what can I tell you, Dad? Blyth has changed my life. And she was joking a bit, but I've noticed a palpable difference between her engagement with school and her excitement about it and her interest and her relationship with her teachers. And she went to an excellent school that I have all the admiration for in the world before, but we've just been able to provide something I think a little more engaging than she was for the better part of this year.
So, where do you see the school in the next 5 years?
I see us build upon the strengths that we've established already. I would see more student life developing as we hone our talents. I would see using more virtual forms of teaching and learning alongside the physical forms. I mean, it will never dominate it, but I think what we've learned is that for some students, there are aspects of the virtual platform that actually work well for them, and take away from some of the distractions in a physical classroom or a physical school, and also teach them skills that they're going to need as they go through life, as the world is going to become more virtually reliant. And so I can see us exploring hybrid forms of that. We would never have virtual, be the only option for students, but we might supplement what we do in physical classrooms with virtual options as well.
Thank you. I want to thank you so much for all your hard work and efforts moving forward, and I am sure we'll be hearing more from Blyth Academy, Yorkville, Lawrence Park, and Orbit in the near future. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
And thank you, Ashley. This is great.